the White House, June 18, 2018. At a meeting of the National Space Council, President Donald J. Trump calls on the Pentagon to develop a sixth branch of the United States military, a Space Force.
I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
The stunning news was followed 10 days later by the announcement that President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin would have a private, behind-closed-doors meeting the following month. Is it possible that these two high-profile events were strategically related?
If both nations are aware that there's an extraterrestrial presence and that it is potentially hostile, then cooperation is the only route to go. It's the only way that we could actually achieve some sort of mutual defense of the planet Earth.
This one-on-one between Trump and Putin may just be the latest in a long line of secret, high-level communications between the world leaders. And it may be that things like the creation of the Space Force show that there's been an escalation. Well, the reason you create a force of any kind is to deal with a threat.
We're reaching a point in our civilization here on Earth that we're beginning to send probes and maybe even soon people throughout the solar system, maybe even into deeper space. It's quite possible the Space Force could be set up in outposts in case there was some incident on Mars or in the asteroid belt or at Jupiter or way out at the Kuiper Belt.
As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, the U.S.-Russia relationship in space is the direct result of an extraordinary agenda, not on the part of world leaders, but by an extraterrestrial intelligence. An intelligence that believes that each nation has the unique ability to complement the other's strengths and weaknesses, and that outer space should be explored not as a function of competition, but as the result of mankind's shared need to fulfill its ultimate destiny.
It seems that Russia and America have been inextricably bound together in this space race. A space race run perhaps not between nations, but with nations racing alongside each other.
In actuality, the idea of space race is not correct, because there were never space race. There was cooperation which had to be kept secret for a while. But sooner or later, you could see fruits of such cooperation. We actually have to work together and explore together and cooperate together to prevent any danger to Earth.
As humans prepare for their journey to Mars and beyond, they will become the extraterrestrial visitors of other worlds. And if ancient astronaut theorists are correct, their journey will have been aided by alien visitors who see our planet not as a number of warring nations, but as a launching pad filled with people eager to explore an amazing universe. Almost all of the great world faiths are based on stories of celestial beings who visit Earth. Many millions of people accept these legends as part of their core beliefs. And from the earliest cave drawings to images at Roswell, we see artists' interpretations of extraterrestrials or gods coming to our planet.
In many traditions, there is something coming from above. There's a stairway to heaven, or there's a whirlwind, or an angel descends. Sometimes the encounter is quite dangerous, as would be appropriate to something awesome and larger and more powerful than we are. Usually it is memorable.
many of the myths are much more specific, and they really talk about gods physically coming to Earth, landing, doing miracles, and showing the people how to live.
If visitors did come from the stars, is it possible that they actually changed the way ancient people thought? Did they provide an intellectual spark to prehistoric civilizations? Could that be the reason why so many different cultures could build such large and lasting monuments?
It's almost as if primitive man woke up one morning and went, hey, I've got this knowledge and I know how to make tools and I'm going to go and build all these things. Nah, I don't think it happened that way. I think others came down to this planet and started teaching other people that were beginning to evolve. But the one thing I truly do not believe is that modern cavemen at the time basically created all this knowledge out of thin air.
All around the world, we have concise descriptions in ancient texts which say, word for word, that some beings came from the sky. So it's as if this intellectual Big Bang, or this Big Bang of knowledge, occurred in various periods of time. And those various periods of time, most concisely, always correlate with some type of description of gods descending from the sky.
I do think of that as a very significant before and after moment in the human story, and it is not a moment that is linked to physical evolution. We've already got the hardware. It's as though something happened to our software around about that time, and I think it's a very intriguing moment in the human story.
For supporters of ancient alien theory, the verdict is already in. They believe that aliens visited many of Earth's earliest cultures thousands of years ago. But is it possible? Are extraterrestrials responsible for the sacred creation myths of the first human civilizations? Might they have tampered with our DNA? Are humans themselves aliens from another planet in the heavens, or even from another time? While man continues to search for these answers, the questions remain. If they came here, what was their mission? We call Earth home, but with perfect conditions for life, could it be a beacon calling out to other intelligent civilizations that may exist in the universe?
I think there is life, simple life, bacterial life, microbial life on other planets. I think we're going to find that. And who knows, maybe one day we'll find some other planet that's capable of sustaining life, that has evolved people over a long period of time, that are also looking up at the stars, wondering, is there anybody else out there? Are we the only ones?
What bigger question could we ask about ourselves and our place in the universe? You know, is there life elsewhere in the universe, or are we it? I mean, I think it's one of the most fascinating questions, and we're fortunate enough to live in a time when we can address this question scientifically and really try and get at some answers.
You can then come up with a conclusion that something, one, very strange is happening on this planet, and two, if it's coming from outside of this system, then we're being visited by something that has some intelligence behind it.
In the end, the truth wins. And we've seen this in history, where scientific theories or ideas that have been deemed impossible turned out to be true. And so it is my firm conviction that the same will count for the ancient alien theory.
NASA Ames Research Center, Moffett Field, California. On December 5, 2011, astronomers working with the Kepler Space Telescope announced the discovery of a planet they called Kepler 22b, orbiting within what's known as the habitable zone of a distant star.
Today's discovery is a tantalizing indication that, with time, Kepler may find true Earth analogs.
Kepler 22b is about 600 light years away from Earth, so that's a long way. But it is, in fact, in an orbit that means that the daytime temperatures on that planet might be comparable to a summer in San Francisco. So that's the first time we found a planet that might have liquid oceans, maybe a thick atmosphere, maybe even life.
What we'd ultimately like to do first is just understand how other planetary systems are made up. But then we really would like to find Earth-like planets. Planets in the habitable zone of sun-like stars.
But is it possible that NASA scientists have been searching for life they already know exists? Some believe previous voyages into space have uncovered evidence of an extraterrestrial presence.
Houston, Discovery, how do you read, over?
Discovery, Houston, read you loud and clear.
Go for main engine start. Main engines up and burning. 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
On September 12, 1991, the Space Shuttle Discovery, STS-48, flew nearly 350 miles above the surface of the Earth. Its crew, led by Captain John Creighton, performed several missions, including the deployment of an upper atmosphere research satellite.
Use go for free drift. Okay, we're in free drift.
But while the astronauts occupied themselves with various tasks, a video camera at the rear cargo bay door captured footage that NASA claims no longer exists. But a number of amateurs that were monitoring the transmission produced what they allege is genuine footage from STS-48. The video shows what appears to be a series of unidentified glowing objects and flashing lights that change direction and accelerate rapidly.
Apparently, the space shuttle was surrounded by some kind of UFO, a flying saucer type of craft. Some kind of a shield at one point was supposedly put around the shuttle, briefly. And then the UFO and everything disappeared.
One of the astronauts openly states over an open channel, hey, we're being tracked by an alien spacecraft. And then all of a sudden, all the transmission just ceases. And I think what happened is that he must have realized he was on the public channel, not the private channel, and he probably very, very quickly switched over to the private channel to describe what it was he was seeing.
I knew everyone and I heard stories from everyone. Nobody brought me any evidence. So, one side of the coin, it's everywhere out there. Has it been here? I have no evidence.
NASA officials claim the video images show ice particles glinting in the sun. But is it possible that video transmissions from the space shuttle captured more than what NASA officials want to admit?
Occasionally, shuttle astronauts will report that they've seen things or experienced things in space that they can't explain and that might be due to an alien presence.
Ever since humankind launched itself into space, there have been reports where astronauts describe something that they saw while being up in the spaceship. And we have to remind ourselves that those stories are reported by astronauts and not by insane people.
In 1996, video captured aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia, STS-80, reportedly shows a number of fast-moving objects just outside the craft. These unidentified objects appear as bright streaks. Analysis of their speeds and directions have prompted some researchers to dismiss the claims that the objects were shuttle debris or meteors.
There's a space shuttle video of two very specific missions, STS-48 and STS-80, which clearly show what appear to be powered vehicles operating in low Earth orbit, defying all the laws of physics and clearly performing the way UFOs or extraterrestrial spacecraft are supposedly able to perform.
But American astronauts are not the only space travelers reporting otherworldly encounters. In 1985, Soviet cosmonauts aboard the Salyut 7 reported seeing 7 celestial beings orbiting Earth.
6 cosmonauts claimed that as they looked out of the window of the space station, they saw what they described as winged angels surrounding their ship, and that these were luminous beings looking like people, but also having bizarrely wings on them, and they're in space. So you have to wonder what's going on here, and were these angels some kind of extraterrestrials in special spacesuits with fields around them? And they were investigating the Soviet space station, and then suddenly, bang, they just vanished.
If reports from trained scientists are true, is this proof that extraterrestrial intelligence has been trying to contact us?
Gordon Cooper approached the United Nations about them actually setting up a bureau at the United Nations for extraterrestrial contact.
This is not unknown knowledge. There are people that know, and there seems to be perhaps several different species of aliens visiting here, and it looks like likely they have been for a long, long time.
July 20th, 1976. NASA's unmanned Viking 1 orbiter and lander touches down on the surface of Mars. 3 weeks later, it is joined by its companion, the Viking 2. For the first time ever, humanity has established a presence on another planet.
The Viking landers actually landed on Mars and took a sample, but they landed in one spot, and they stayed in one spot. We've since sent the Pathfinder Sojourner. For the first time, we have a system on Mars that if we see something shiny over there and we want to go check it out, we'll send the rover and get a very close look at it, take samples, get high-definition video from it, and that is a very good start for figuring out where people need to go when we get ready to send them there.
In 2012, the Curiosity rover landed on Mars's Gale crater. It was the most ambitious Mars mission flown by NASA to date.
Touchdown confirmed. Proceed on Mars.
One of its objectives was to gather data that will help scientists determine what is needed to make the planet more habitable for human exploration. In June 2018, scientist and aerospace engineer Dr. Travis Taylor traveled to Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. There, he met with NASA exploration mission scientist Dr. Elizabeth Rampey. Dr. Rampey analyzes data obtained by the Mars Curiosity rover, which 6 years into its mission is sending back some of its most extraordinary findings yet.
So there was very late-breaking news recently from the Curiosity rover, and some interesting information came out of the Sample Analysis at Mars, or SAM instrument.
Okay.
So SAM can measure gases in the atmosphere, and it can also measure gases that are evolved from samples. So basically, we drill a rock, deliver that powder to the instrument, and then that instrument heats up the sample and measures the gases that are coming off.
Whatever outgasses, it can tell you what that is, right?
Exactly. So a big piece of information from the atmosphere is that we've been tracking methane over the last few Martian years, and what we see is that there is a cycle to it where it spikes late summer, early autumn, and then dips again.
Wow.
Yeah, so the big question is why is that happening?
So that could possibly be due to an organic material, right? Or a biological source.
Exactly.
Meaning
so
life.
that's right. I know. So huge.
Wow.
It's not the only hypothesis out there.
Sure.
But, you know, there is the possibility that there is extant life on Mars that is creating this methane.
Wow. The fact that NASA has now released information that they've measured a cycle of methane that goes up in the summer and down in the winter, it sounds very similar to how biological processes create methane here on Earth. That could be evidence that there's life right now on Mars.
Life on Mars? According to NASA, such a profound notion is a distinct possibility. But although the space agency is still working to confirm their findings, ancient astronaut theorists remain confident of the outcome. They have maintained for decades that not only does the red planet contain life, but that it was once home to a highly advanced extraterrestrial civilization. And for their proof, they point to the existence of possible structures found on its surface.
There are lots of claims of photographs showing different features on the surface of Mars. These have come from the orbiters that are obviously taking pictures as they go round all the time. And some people would find different features and interpret them as geometric or rectilinear structures that suggest civilization.
You see everything you would expect to see if you went to someplace on planet Earth 50,000 years from now when the human race had been wiped out. There clearly are technological objects that have become fossilized.
While the notion that an ancient civilization once existed on Mars may sound far-fetched, NASA has continued to make discoveries that could reveal something even more incredible: that life on Earth actually originated on Mars.
So what is this? Tell me what this is.
Okay, so this is a Martian meteorite. So this is a rock that came from Mars.
How long ago?
The rock itself is about 180 million years old, so that's when it crystallized on Mars. And to give you some context, 180 million years ago, dinosaurs were roaming the Earth.
Right. Well, we know that this rock came from Mars, so if there was organic material on Mars 3.5 billion years ago, something could have caused that organic material to go from there to here, right?
Right, and what's interesting about, 3.5 billion years ago is that's when life was taking hold on Earth. So,
right.
And Mars was once very Earth-like with rivers and lakes. So why not Mars? We've got all the building blocks for life on Mars, so why couldn't it happen there?
So it's very possible that we're descendants of Martians.
I'm not going to rule that out.